Hello everyone, this is Katie. Today is just another hangout sketch session really. I'm going to be drawing this guy on the left here. This is Lake. He's kindly shared his reference picture on the Sketchy Museum app. I love a profile shot, so I just felt inspired to draw Lake today. And yeah, so I just kind of fancied having a good sketching session really, and I wanted to share it with you. So today I'm drawing with the Lane charcoal set. I'm using the general charcoal pencil to do my drawing. I'm really starting in with some kind of gestural lines. I'm kind of trying to feel my way through his face quite organically. So I'm looking, when I look on the left hand side, I'm looking at the lines of his face. Trying to map out. Profiles are quite challenging, I guess. Something about that side shot. You've really got to try and observe quite closely what's going on so you don't get lost and things don't end up in the wrong place. So doing things like tracking the line across the jaw, looking at the eye socket, so that line from the inside of the eyebrow that goes down past the eyelashes and then round the cheekbone and back around the eyebrow, that shape there I'm looking out for. I'm also looking for the line from the middle of his eyebrows that goes down to the side of his nose and to the corner of his chin, and then down further to the line of his neck, and just kind of mapping those elements in and seeing where they, I guess, how they line up to each other, what's the angle of that line, and also the line from the middle of between his eyebrows down to the top lip and the chin, and trying to map that in as well. It can be quite difficult when you're drawing someone in a position you're not used to drawing, like a profile shot. Perhaps you're not used to drawing blokes, you're not used to drawing people of African origin, people with different features and facial shapes that you're used to drawing. I think you get stuck in this kind of almost subconscious method of drawing different faces. So I think sometimes it's really good to draw people that are young or old or different backgrounds or different, postures, wearing different clothes, that have different hair, really to keep, I guess, that variety and really keep your interest and make sure that you're able to have a good range of people you're able to capture when you're drawing. Lake has got a really great face, he's got really beautiful skin, he's got really clear features. I also like his expression in this picture as well. It seems kind of wistful. I'm not sure I ended up capturing it too well, but I had fun trying. So in terms of the process I'm going through, I'm using that General's brush. I kind of struggled a little bit. I changed over my my screen protector, and actually realised that the screen protector I've got now isn't a matte one. For some reason I must have been shipped the wrong one, so I'm going to have to switch it again. But with my Apple Pencil kind of sliding around the screen, I'm not going to lie, I would kind of struggled a little bit, and it made me realise just how helpful I find a matte screen protector. So I was struggling a little bit to get some of the lines with the amount of control that I normally am used to using, so that made it an additional challenge. But I kind of like having obstacles put in my path. I like restrictions because I think from those and from the battle that you have trying to get over those, often you end up with kind of unexpected interesting outcomes. So it was fine, I just kind of went with it. I cursed a little bit, but I got to the outcome that I wanted. So once you get used to these brushes, I think you really do get that level of control over the way you use them. By putting the pencil on the side, you can really kind of build up these really kind of gritty but gradual textures that I love, that you can kind of see around the bottom of his face, and around his eyes. So I'm kind of building up a bit of that texture. You can still see some of the lines on his face. I've not separated them in layers. After some time, I realised that I actually really love those lines that start to help me map in the features. Sometimes they can be distracting if they're not quite in the right place, so you do need to be careful about whether you want to get rid of lines that aren't quite working for you. And eventually, often they do go. By the time I get to the very end of the picture, you can see very few of those lines. But I'm in no hurry to get rid of those. I like to kind of work with them. I like to smudge them out. I like to erase into them. I like to kind of build up interest and texture as I go along. So yeah, I mean, you'll see those lines sort of end up staying for quite a lot of the picture. I am just working on one layer. I will bring in a second layer a little bit later on, but I'll talk about that when it happens. In terms of the hair, I've been doing a lot of these Sargent studies recently. I've got a whole, if you see my video where I recorded a session where I did a Sargent study in charcoal pencil, you'll see my sketchbook there. But I've been doing loads and loads of Sargent studies, and I really felt that I was kind of channeling a bit of that style somehow. I mean, this is not in Sargent style, absolutely not. But I think there's certainly elements of the way he draws his drawings that I found coming out as I was drawing, almost subconsciously, perhaps just because I have been drawing so many of those. So something about the way he loses some of the lines around the face, that approach of having kind of almost very soft textures built up, and then those really quite strong dynamic accent lines. So I guess I was sort of bringing in some of that into my drawing. The hair for me was quite an interesting challenge. Like, I didn't really want to overdo it. The hair definitely, it's a very important part of the picture in terms of the mass. The hair is like twice the size of the face, and I think it gives the whole face a really good flow and structure. So I really wanted to represent it properly, but also I didn't want to over focus on it, because it's all about, the face, although smaller than the hair, was also very important. So I didn't want the hair to kind of overwhelm the picture. So I kind of balanced it by kind of blocking it in and using some of those sort of hatching lines so that almost kind of fades out the interest in there. If you kind of overlay it with a bit of hatching, I think it kind of helps our brain kind of white noise it out a little bit. So yeah, I'm kind of winging it, to be honest, though. I don't really have a plan. These sessions, I stick some music on, I relax in a chair, I just kind of go with the flow and let myself feel my way through the picture. I've not hyper focused on accuracy. I do later on in the drawing fix a few bits and pieces that I'm not so happy with, but I wasn't really trying to focus on making this look exactly like Lake. I just wanted to get a cool picture, I guess, to capture something. Maybe that wistfulness for sure I wanted to capture. I don't know if I managed it, but maybe it went away a little bit at the end. I do quite like the picture actually at this stage. I almost wish I'd stuck with this stage. His eye is a little bit too set into the centre of the picture. I did try and sort of tackle that a bit later, but I think because I had those kind of flowing underlines, it still kind of works a little bit, I guess. I may change my mind when I come back and look at it in a few hours, though. That's always the risk. So spending time blocking in Lake's hair. Yeah, I'm just sort of playing with this one. It's quite difficult to get that balance between capturing the texture and the shape, but not overdoing it and overworking it. But really, the beauty of these charcoal brushes is you can use the eraser or the smudge brushes to really knock things back. So any area where you think that line looks too harsh, it's drawing your eye too much, just come in with, your eraser and just lightly knock it back. Just mist the eraser over the darker lines, or the the edge softener smudge brush over the darker lines, and then you'll be able to kind of knock those back and kind of lessen the impact. Our eyes are drawn to contrast, so you really want to kind of think of what areas that you want to be people to be interested in and to look at. So it's usually kind of the eyes, the mouth. Those are the areas. I mean, with his expression, I really want the interest to be drawn to the eyes and the eyebrows, perhaps the mouth as well, especially that downturn in the corner of his mouth. So those are really going to be the areas where I'm trying to put in the most contrast. You do really have to pick your battles. If your drawing has too many of those accents, then you're just kind of going to get lost. So I spent some time noodling on his nose. It's quite difficult. Mouths are quite difficult. He's got a moustache as well, so that's kind of throwing things off a little bit for me, I think. Also, I noticed that the top of his nostril was actually almost parallel to the bottom of the page, so I think I just got the angle a bit wrong there, so just kind of trying and go in and do some of those fixes. You can see I'm constantly making the picture small, zooming out, zooming in again. Artists like Sargent, they would constantly be walking away from the easel. I think having the iPad means that you save yourself a lot of exercise, because you can do exactly the same thing by zooming in and out. So this is me trying to place a few accents. You can see I've got those sharp lines. I'm still not good enough to really know how to use those effectively, so it is a bit of trial and error, I think, really. Just kind of going with the flow, and if I put a line in and I don't like it, then I'm knocking back and trying again. Also not being shy of using the undo as well, so every time I put a line, I might put in a line 2 or 3 times, and every time I try it, I don't like it, I knock it back or I undo, and then I try again, and eventually I get a line that I like, usually. So I did do this all in one sitting. It took about 40 minutes, 30 minutes for the main drawing, and then I sort of had a 10-minute play at the end where I kind of chucked in some funky textures, as you'll see in a bit. The only downside of doing it all in one big mammoth session, not that 40 minutes is a mammoth session, but the only problem with doing it that way is you don't get that break for your eyes. So what I should have done is set a time for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, put my drawing down, walked away, had a cup of tea, had a little walk, had a drink of water, and then come back. And I think that would have helped me reset. So you can see the eye is really bugging me, so I'm going to go in with my liquify tool just to kind of bump the eye a little bit. I would normally just redraw it, erase and move it along a bit, but I did kind of like the way that I was looking, so I just didn't really want to lose it, so it's fine. I just use my liquify tool to bump it across. Sometimes when you do that, you lose a bit of it kind of goes a little bit blurry, so you still often have to go in over it and redraw things, but if you're really attached to an eye, and I try not to get attached to my drawing, especially if it's in the wrong place, I try to learn how to let it go with joy. But if you do get really attached, then, just use it. Life's too short, isn't it, really? But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that eye. I really hope I don't come and ruin it soon. Yeah, so it's got to that stage where I'm just doing last minute adjustments. So I'm just popping in his other eye. He's kind of got a tilt to his head. If you look at the way the eyelashes are through, on the other side of his nose, they're much further down than his other eyelash. I don't know if he's blinking or maybe his head's more tilted than it looks. I'm not sure, but yeah. Just dropping the bottom of his chin a little bit. I do really like that dip between his Adam's apple. It goes up to where his chin joins his neck and then down to his chin. He's got a really elegant neck, so just wanted to really emphasize that. Maybe I've emphasized it a bit too much, because it's actually quite a sharp turn, and you can see I've got quite a soft turn here, but hey, sometimes I just go with it. So going back into the hair, it was a little bit of a struggle for me to get it the way I wanted it. I still think I'm not completely happy with it. Trying to decide whether I should do a bit of a sergeant and kind of, I'm coming with the eraser very lightly and just knocking back the edge of the hair to think maybe I can bring in one of those lines on the edge of the hair just to kind of define the shape. But again, I was struggling a bit because my stylus was slipping around a lot on the slippery screen. So yeah, it's a bit of a challenge, eh? I've kind of not really addressed the bottom where his neck joins his chest. I can't remember what that called. It's the notch at the bottom of the neck. I think it's just because I'm a bit lazy. Maybe it's also because I didn't really want that to distract from the drawing, or distract the focus. Not sure. That's my excuse for being lazy anyway. I mean, you can tell the eye is still bugging me. I'm working on it quite a lot. I was trying to sort of feel my way around whether it was because I'd put the eyebrow in the wrong place or the eye in the wrong place. Often what I'll do here is I'll overlay the source photograph just to see what I've done wrong. But I didn't want to come in and try and fix this to make it look like the source photograph, because I had a gut feeling that I would lose something in that process. And I know what I'm like. Once it's there, I can't resist in doing fixes like that. So I made the decision not to fix it, because even though it's not a perfect likeness of Lake on the left hand side, it still looks like a person and it's still quite a nice drawing. So yeah, so I've not done that. So there you can see I'm duplicating the layer. I've done a separate video which is like an introduction to Procreate, so if you're not sure on how to duplicate layers or group layers, then just head over and watch that tutorial. It will kind of go into a bit more detail. The reason I'm duplicating the layer is I just wanted, I was happy with the way it was, and I decided I was going to do a bit of experimentation, and I just wanted to keep a copy of the drawing in a really nice state just so that I had it as a backup. So yeah, just playing with the background there, deciding whether I wanted to add in a bit of a background. Deciding whether I want to add in some freckles. He's got great freckles on his nose, some under his chin, on the top of his neck, so just like details like that. It's always a bit of a challenge to decide what to do about them, whether to include them or whether to leave them out. So I've almost like exaggerated, I think, the tilt of his neck, but I think it looks quite cool on the page like this. So maybe a bit of a happy accident. Yeah, it's almost like I've kind of given him a bit of a, ooh, he's leaning forward, ooh, his chin's going forward, I'm not sure. I might afterwards, when I, come back and overlay the picture, just have a good laugh and see just how much I've got this wrong, but yeah, I think it looks pretty cool in the page. Oh, I can't resist. I'm coming in and fixing more things on the nose. You can see I've got this really zoomed in now, so really zoomed out. Have you ever done that thing where you do a drawing and then you upload it to Instagram, and before you upload it to Instagram you're really happy with it, but then you put it on Instagram and you look at it in that tiny little square and you realise you've done something horrifically wrong? That is kind of what I'm trying to avoid right now and zooming out. So what I've done now is I finished the drawing and I'm just going in and adding some cool textures. I'm using the Griffin brush set, and oh, I don't know what happened there. Ignore. So I'm using the Griffin brush set and just stamping in a few of his textured brushes. I'm also coming with a select tool and selecting a few random jagged shapes. There's not really any science behind it. I'm just looking at the picture on the left and the picture on the right, and just randomly selecting some shapes. I'm kind of going for the ones with a bit of more of mid-tone, but in terms of how I've selected those shapes, there isn't really much of a logic. It's just happening quite organically. So once I've got those areas selected, I'm coming in again with one of the big brushes and just stamping in a bit of texture. Well, you can see this is a complete experiment stage. I'm kind of going with the flow. I'm putting some textures down. I'm going into it, erasing it. I'm turning it on and off to see whether I think it's something that's added something to the picture or whether it's something that's made it not so good. And I've decided actually it looks good, it looks better. I quite like the way it's evoking the feeling of his hair, I guess. Yeah, so that's it really, and then I finished. This is a finished drawing. I hope you found this useful, interesting. Have a good day.